Hello and welcome. My name is Alan, and today, this video is one I wanted to go ahead and make when I heard the news earlier while watching one of my favorite channels for actual election stuff, Let's Talk Elections. Go to the channel and check them out. He mentioned a federal court struck down the Texas congressional map that they were trying to gerrymander. And if they want it to go any further, it has to go to the Supreme Court. They said so. He said. But anyway, yeah. So this is interesting news. Because, yeah. And I think it's going to cause a whole lot of other states to kind of get cold feet when trying to do this. Because the winds have shifted against Trump, and it is not as viable to be in his corner as it was for many of these Republicans. So I know a lot of them, for the sake of trying to save political careers, a lot of them will kind of slowly back off. They're not going to try to say anything against them necessarily, but they're going to probably, a lot of them, back off as far as the rhetoric and everything else. But let's look at this story. I have two pulled up just for the extra additional coverage. But from Reuters, court blocks new Texas congressional map drawn by Republicans. 3-judge panel rules 2-1 against Trump's electoral map. Judges deemed the map an improper racial gerrymander. And Governor Abbott vows to appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court. Federal court on Tuesday blocked Texas from using a new congressional map intended to flip several Democratic-held U.S. House of Representatives seats to Republicans in the 2026 midterm elections, faulting Governor Greg Abbott for directing the legislature to draw it based on race, because so many of those districts in Texas are going to be Latino, but just because of the high Latino population in Texas. And so, yeah, usually you're going to see it drawn kind of against giving any one Democrat the chance to have a high Latino turnout to overturn anything. But federal court said, you can't do that. The 2-1 ruling by a 3-judge panel dealt a major blow to Texas Republicans who had been urged by President Trump to redraw the boundaries of state congressional districts to maximize the number of Republicans who could be elected and protect his party's narrow U.S. House majority. Abbott labeled the ruling absurd, and his administration immediately filed a notice of appeal to the Supreme Court. So, yeah, it's going to be up in the U.S. Supreme Court if they take it up. The move by Texas to create a new map, which could tilt as many as 5 Democratic-held seats to Republicans, set off a nationwide partisan redistricting battle playing out in both Republican-governed and Democratic-led states. But the U.S. District Court for the Western District of Texas's judicial panel ruled in favor of civil rights groups that challenged the map, blocking its implementation and ruling that the state's obvious map from 2021 must be used for next year's congressional elections. Republicans currently control 25 of 38 U.S. House seats in Texas under that 2021 map. And I think they'd been able to squeeze out 5 Democratic seats, so it would have gone from 25 to 30. So it would have been 30 Republican seats and 8 Democratic. But they were like, nope. In writing the opinion, Judge Jeffrey Brown, who was appointed by Trump in 2019, said the court found substantial evidence that shows Texas racially gerrymandered its new map in violation of federal law. David Guadarrama, who was appointed by former President Barack Obama, joined the opinion. Judge Jerry Smith, appointed by former President Reagan, was the dissenting vote. Gerrymandering involves redrawing electoral district boundaries to marginalize a certain set of voters and increase the influence of others. The U.S. Supreme Court in 2019 forbade federal courts from intervening in cases involving gerrymandering done for partisan advantage. Gerrymandering predominantly driven by race remains illegal. Tuesday's ruling found Abbott explicitly directed the legislature to redistrict based on race after receiving a letter from Trump's Justice Department threatening legal action if the state did not come up with a new map. The Justice Department letter itself, the judges found, was based on a legally incorrect assertion. The result was that the map that violated the U.S. Constitution's promise of equal protection under the law and protection against racial discriminating in voting according to the order. So, yeah. The court basically said, according to the Constitution, yeah, you can't do this. Though, has it stopped Trump and Republicans in this administration so far from violating and ripping it up? The ruling marked a victory for Democrats and civil rights groups in Texas who had argued that the new map further diluted the voting power of racial minorities. The NAACP civil rights group noted in a statement on Tuesday that the state of Texas is only 40% white, but white voters control over 73% of the state's congressional seats because of how it's drawn. Gloria Lill, a lawyer for the League of United Latin American Citizens, said the new map packed minority voters into some districts that took them out of other districts, creating fewer districts where Hispanic and black voters together were a majority. She said that while the motive may have been to gain a political advantage, Texas Republicans racially gerrymandered and diluted the power of minority communities, particularly Hispanics and African Americans. The League of United Latin American Citizens was a plaintiff in the case. So yeah, like I said, there is a huge Latin American population in Texas. And even right now, with the 2021 map, it's still probably drawn a little against them because they probably should have more Democratic districts just by pure population numbers. But the way they're drawn to lessen the impact of the pockets of where they are, yeah, it's one of the big reasons a lot of gerrymanders happen for BS like this. And people try to claim, oh, we're a post-racial society. Kiss my ass. We are not post-racial. We still do so much BS on fucking racial lines. Abbott said in a statement that any claim that these maps are discriminatory is absurd, and Texas filed notice of its appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court later Tuesday. Attorney General Pamela Bondi strongly disagreed with the court ruling, saying on X that Texas's map was drawn the right way for the right reasons. Bullshit. Tuesday's ruling marked the latest setbacks for Trump's push to tilt political maps. Indiana Republicans on Friday abandoned a legislative session that had been called to enact a new congressional map. Handful of races could decide which party controls the U.S. House of Representatives, with Republicans only holding a 5-seat majority. Democratic-governed California reacted to the Texas redistricting by initiating its own effort targeting the 5 Republican-held districts in the state. California voters in November overwhelmingly approved a new map beneficial to Democrats. The Trump administration last week sued California to stop the new redistricting maps from taking effect. Yeah. To kind of counter what Texas was doing with the gerrymandering, they held a referendum earlier in the month here on this most recent election day. And yeah, it was a huge win because before that, they had passed a law that said they would no longer gerrymander, and try to have fair districts. But a lot of people who were sick of Trump's shit said, you know what, fuck that. They deserve to be kicked in the nuts. And so they've agreed to redistrict California. Virginia has advanced a plan to redraw its political maps, meaning Democrats could find themselves ahead in the redistricting fight should Texas's court decision hold. Yeah, Virginia has basically put a bill forward after cementing control in the Virginia legislature, which could end up being all districts in Virginia except one are blue. So yeah. Basically, Trump and the Republicans have stepped on a rake and it smacked them straight in the face. Trying to rig the game, they screwed themselves. So yeah. Yeah, I just wanted to bring this to y'all. It happened earlier today, and I just wanted to, like I said, bring this up after I heard it on one of a video from one of the channels I like watching. But anyway, we'll go ahead and end this here. As always, educate thyself, think, read, study, learn. Someone tells you something you have trouble believing, ask them to cite their sources. I'll be putting my links and sources in the description box below the video. Thank you all for watching. I'll see y'all in the next one. Until then, later.